I want you to pause for a moment and imagine a woman who walks her path alone. Not because she has to, but because she's learned the beauty of solitude. Society tells her she's missing out if she doesn't have a tribe of friends around her, but she knows better. She knows the power, the courage, and the wisdom that come from turning inward and standing strong on her own 2 feet. In her solitude, she finds her strength. She learns that just because she's walking alone doesn't mean she's lonely. Quite the opposite, this woman has learned to make peace with herself, to explore her own depths. She has discovered a world within her that no friend, no social circle could ever give her. Her journey inward has shown her that the most beautiful relationship she will ever have is the one she builds with herself. And let me tell you, when a woman stops relying on others for her happiness, for her sense of worth, she becomes unstoppable. She no longer has to fit into anyone else's mold. She doesn't need the validation or approval of anyone around her. Instead, she starts to understand that her value isn't based on what others think of her, but on the love and respect she has for herself. There's freedom in that. There's freedom in breaking free from the expectations that everyone else tries to place upon you. When she's not trying to impress or please, she is free to be fully herself. She doesn't shrink herself to fit in or dim her light to make others comfortable. She's finally, beautifully, authentically herself. And here's the thing, there is a power in authenticity. When a woman steps fully into who she is without the need for approval or applause, she becomes whole. She realizes that she is complete all on her own. This wholeness, this self-assurance becomes her anchor. She is her own home, her own safe space, her own best friend. So to every woman who has found herself walking this path, remember this: you are not defined by the number of people around you. You are defined by the depth of your heart, the strength of your spirit, and the love you hold for yourself. In your solitude, you are becoming. You are creating a life that is built on truth, on strength, and on the beauty of knowing exactly who you are. Imagine a woman who day by day learns to draw power from her own presence. She's no longer waiting for someone to lean on. Instead, she's learning that the only support she truly needs lies within her. When the world gets quiet and there are no friends to text, no gatherings to rush to, she finds something deeper herself. Alone, she faces her thoughts, her fears, and her dreams without distraction. She faces them head on, and in that process, she finds courage she never knew she had. This woman is discovering a strength that isn't swayed by opinions or dependent on anyone else. In the solitude, she sees her own resilience. She realizes that the strength she sought in others is actually right there inside her. When she's alone with no one else to validate her, she learns to value herself. She finds the confidence to say, I am enough just as I am, and that realization becomes a light in her darkest moments, a reassurance that she is whole all on her own. With each quiet moment, her inner strength grows. She learns that she can overcome challenges, face setbacks, and navigate life's twists and turns with her own inner compass. She builds an unbreakable foundation, one that doesn't rely on others for stability. She becomes her own sanctuary, her own greatest supporter. And in doing so, she finds a power that no one can take away, a power rooted deeply in her heart, one that fuels her to stand tall and walk proudly, with or without anyone by her side. In those quiet moments when loneliness creeps in, she feels an ache, a longing for connection, for understanding, for companionship. But instead of shrinking away from it, she bravely chooses to lean in. She begins to ask herself questions she's never asked before. Who am I without anyone else here? What makes me feel alive, fulfilled, at peace? She sits with these questions, exploring parts of herself that might have gone unnoticed in the noise of everyday life. The solitude becomes a mirror, reflecting back aspects of her character that she hadn't fully understood. She discovers her true values, her passions, her dreams. She begins to unravel the layers built up from years of trying to fit in, impress, or please others. With no one else's opinions to cloud her judgment, she starts to recognize her own voice, her desires, her intuition, her inner truth. She uncovers strengths she didn't know she had and acknowledges weaknesses she hadn't dared to confront before. Through the journey of self-discovery, she learns to trust herself, to find comfort in her own company. The loneliness that once felt heavy transforms into a path of growth, guiding her toward a clearer sense of who she is and what she wants. Each day, she steps further into her own identity, not shaped by anyone else, but defined by her own experiences and reflections. And as she uncovers more of herself, the loneliness fades, replaced by a profound sense of self-understanding and fulfillment. This journey of self-discovery teaches her that she is her own best friend, that within herself she has everything she needs to feel whole, complete, and truly alive. In the journey towards self-love, she begins to understand that real worth isn't something granted by others, it's something she builds within herself. She starts to see that her value isn't tied to what she does for people or how well she fits in. It's about knowing deep down that she is deserving of love and respect simply for being who she is. This realization doesn't come easily. It takes time, patience, and a lot of honesty with herself. She has to let go of the old beliefs that tell her she isn't good enough or that she has to prove herself to earn love. As she practices self-love, she starts to show herself the same kindness she would offer a dear friend. She becomes more forgiving of her own flaws, more understanding of her mistakes, more gentle in her self-talk. She begins to celebrate her strengths and acknowledges her own efforts, knowing that her journey is unique and that her worth isn't diminished by setbacks or failures. She stops looking in the mirror hoping to see someone better instead. She looks at herself with acceptance, appreciating every part of her being. Her sense of self-worth grows stronger as she stops relying on others to validate her. She realizes that love from others is wonderful, but not essential to feeling complete. She learns to fill her own cup, nurturing herself with affirmations, boundaries, and healthy habits. She becomes protective of her peace, her time, and her energy, knowing she deserves a life that honors her well-being and happiness. With each step she takes in self-love, she feels lighter, freer. Her worth is no longer based on external praise, accomplishments, or the company she keeps. It's rooted in a deep, unshakable belief that she is enough, just as she is. This newfound self-love empowers her to live fully, courageously, and unapologetically because she knows she is worthy of a beautiful life, no matter who else is there to witness it. As she steps into her own, she begins to realize the weight she's been carrying, the silent pressure to meet expectations, to conform, to be liked, to belong. She feels the countless shoulds that have shaped her decisions and actions, often without her even noticing. But now in her journey toward freedom, she chooses to let go of the need to please others. She starts questioning those expectations, asking herself what she truly wants, not what she's been told to want. She's breaking free from the idea that her worth depends on fitting into a mold someone else created. In releasing these social expectations, she gives herself permission to live on her own terms. No longer bound by what others think is appropriate or right for her, she finds the courage to explore her individuality and express herself authentically. She no longer hides parts of herself to avoid judgment. Instead, she embraces every aspect, knowing that her uniqueness is a strength, not a flaw. This freedom allows her to take risks, to say no when she means it, and to pursue dreams that others may not understand. She understands now that real fulfillment comes from living in alignment with her own values and desires. She lets go of the need for external validation, realizing that she doesn't have to live up to anyone else's standards. This liberation doesn't make her arrogant, it makes her grounded. She becomes more compassionate toward others because she's no longer comparing herself, competing, or seeking approval. She learns to love herself and others more fully without the burden of expectation. With this newfound freedom, her life becomes a reflection of who she truly is. She is able to choose relationships, careers, and paths that resonate with her spirit, no longer settling or compromising her values to gain acceptance. She steps forward confidently, creating a life that feels honest, purposeful, and entirely her own. In breaking free from social expectations, she finds a joy and peace that can only come from living fully and authentically. As she begins to embrace authenticity, she sheds the mask she's worn for so long, the masks created to meet others' expectations, to fit in, to avoid judgment. She realizes that true happiness isn't found in pretending to be someone she's not, but in living as the truest version of herself. It's a process, a gradual unlearning of all the ways she's tried to blend in or hide her quirks and passions. She begins to see that the parts of herself she once thought she needed to change are actually the very things that make her unique. Embracing authenticity means accepting her flaws, her strengths, her dreams, and her past. She acknowledges her journey with all its ups and downs and understands that every part of it has shaped who she is. She lets go of the fear that people might not like or understand her, choosing instead to honor her own truth. She speaks and acts in alignment with her beliefs, and in doing so, she experiences a freedom like never before. She's no longer held back by what others might think, allowing her to pursue what truly lights her up rather than what she thinks she should do. Living authentically brings a new kind of strength, one rooted in self-trust. She knows that she's making choices that feel right to her, and that gives her a sense of peace and confidence. Her relationships transform too, as she surrounds herself with people who see her, value her, and appreciate her for who she really is. She attracts connections that are genuine, based on mutual respect and honesty, rather than on superficial expectations. Embracing authenticity means she's willing to be vulnerable, to be seen in her fullness, strengths, flaws, and all. She becomes a beacon for others who are also on a journey of self-discovery, inspiring them to embrace their own uniqueness. In living as her true self, she steps into a life that feels deeply fulfilling and rich with purpose. She no longer needs to seek approval. Her joy comes from knowing she is living her truth unapologetically. And in that truth, she finds a sense of belonging within herself that no external validation could ever provide. As she walks her path, she discovers a profound truth: she is whole on her own. She no longer looks to others to complete her, because she has come to understand that true fulfillment can only come from within. This isn't a realization she arrives at easily. It comes through moments of self-reflection, through struggles and quiet times of solitude. She learns to enjoy her own company, to find peace in her thoughts, and to build a life that isn't reliant on anyone else's presence to feel complete. In being whole on her own, she becomes her own source of comfort, her own safe space. She begins to trust her intuition, her decisions, and her resilience. When challenges arise, she no longer feels the need to lean on others for strength. Instead, she draws from the reservoir within her, a wellspring of courage and wisdom she's cultivated over time. She finds joy in pursuing her passions, setting her own goals, and celebrating her own victories, no matter how small. This wholeness doesn't mean she's closed off to others. In fact, it allows her to connect more meaningfully. She's able to enter relationships without fear or neediness because she no longer depends on others to define her happiness. Her interactions become a choice, not a necessity, and she embraces companionship not out of loneliness, but out of a genuine desire to share life's moments. This independence allows her to set healthy boundaries, to love freely, and to give without losing herself. Being whole on her own empowers her with a sense of inner peace and balance. She finds contentment in knowing that she is her own foundation, steady and unwavering, regardless of who comes and goes in her life. This completeness becomes her strength, her guiding light, and her greatest achievement. She stands tall, not because she has all the answers, but because she knows that within herself she has everything she needs to thrive, to grow, and to love. In the end, a woman with no friends is not alone. She is profoundly connected to herself, her purpose, and her truth. She has discovered the richness within her own heart, learning to draw strength from solitude, to transform loneliness into self-discovery, and to nurture an unshakable sense of self-worth. She stands free from social expectations, living authentically and embracing her wholeness without the need for external validation. This journey has shown her that her power, her peace, and her joy are hers to create and sustain. In her quiet strength, she becomes a beacon, a reminder to us all that fulfillment comes from knowing, loving, and standing by oneself. She is and will always be enough.